All right, now let us look at group 2 hormones, various group 2 hormones which act through cell surface receptors, G protein coupled receptors, which we have seen in our last video or last class. So the second messenger system, either cyclic AMP or the cyclic GMP. What are these cyclic GMP, cyclic AMP molecules? These are nothing but nucleotides like your adenosine. How was your adenosine? This was your adenosine, right? This adenosine is attached with a ribose sugar. All right. Now C5. This is your C3, C2, C1. Okay. This is your N9. Now this is your adenosine. This is your adenosine. This C5, if it is attached with a phosphate, it becomes an adenylate. Now this C5 phosphate, adenylate or adenosine monophosphate, this phosphate generally binds with C3 of some other nucleotide. In our DNA and RNA we have seen. But here there is an unusual bond which cyclizes this phosphate, and this is attached with the 3' carbon, C5 3' in a cyclical form. Okay, so this becomes your cyclic AMP. What has happened? Only the phosphate group which was attached to the C5, instead of binding to other, it has bind to its own C3. Same thing with your guanine. What is guanine? Okay, this is your adenine, this is your guanosine. To this guanosine on the C5, if there is a phosphate, then this becomes a GMP. This phosphate is attached with its C3 carbon, so this becomes cyclic GMP. So cyclic AMP and cyclic GMP, these are nothing but are nucleotides which are wherein the phosphate group is attached to its own C3 carbon. All right. Now let us see where these hormones are present. I'll try to draw things. You can remember it better this way, I think. This is hypothalamus, then your big pituitary, okay, and your posterior pituitary. All right. Then we have your thyroid gland, with their parathyroid glands. Then the pancreas, and we have your intestine, then your foremost adrenal glands. Okay, basically our entire system, like hypothalamus, posterior pituitary, this is your anterior pituitary, this is parathyroid, this is your thyroid, this is your pancreas, your GIT, and your adrenals. Basically most of your hormone system. Okay, now let us see among this list which are present in which organs. Alpha 2 and beta adrenergic catecholamines. Alpha 2 and beta adrenergic, beta mostly present in the heart. Alpha 2 adrenergic and beta catecholamines, where are catecholamines secreted from your adrenals? So your catecholamines which act on alpha 2 and beta. Beta is mostly stimulatory, alpha 2 is mostly inhibitory in nature. Beta is mostly present in the heart. Alright, so catecholamines, they are coming from adrenal glands. Next, ACTH. ACTH is coming from the pituitary. Antidiuretic hormone vasopressin, ADH, is coming from the posterior pituitary. Next, your calcitonin is coming from your thyroid. Next, beta HCG or human chorionic gonadotropin. This is secreted by the placenta of the baby surrounding the baby, or syncytial trophoblast initially, later on the placenta. Next, corticotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus. CRH comes from the hypothalamus. Then your FSH, then your LPH, LH, MSH, PTH, TSH, almost all come from the pituitary gland. So anterior pituitary is the major one which is causing action through cyclic AMP. Alright. Next we have our glucagon. Glucagon, we know it is coming from alpha cells of pancreas. Glucagon. Somatostatin. Somatostatin comes from the gut. Somatostatin comes from the gut. So basically we have covered almost all hormones here for cyclic AMP. CRH from hypothalamus, ACTH, FSH, LH, LPH, MSH, PTH and TSH from anterior pituitary, antidiuretic hormone from the posterior pituitary, calcitonin from thyroid gland, somatostatin from the gut, glucagon from pancreas, and alpha and beta catecholamines from adrenal gland. These are the ones which use cyclic AMP as a second messengers. Atrial natriuretic factor secreted by atria of the heart, and nitric oxide, it is produced by the nitric oxide synthase inside the body. How it is produced from nitric oxide synthase? Arginine. Arginine forms citrulline and gives nitric oxide. In presence of nitric oxide synthase, a lot of NADP is converted to a lot of NADP, H plus, H plus, H plus, H plus, H plus. Okay, so this is how nitric oxide is synthesized inside the body. So these are the basic hormones which are using cyclic AMP and cyclic GMP as a second messenger. All right, now let us look at the mechanism of action. We have seen that in the G protein coupled receptor, this is the receptor, this is your alpha, beta and gamma, this is your alpha, okay, and it is attached with the GDP. Now once the hormone comes and binds to it, what happens? It will dissociate alpha from beta and gamma and convert GDP to GTP. Okay, now once this alpha is free, this alpha will act on an effector molecule. It will act on an effector molecule. The effector molecule here is adenylyl cyclase. Adenylyl cyclase. So all these molecules, all these hormones, what they are doing? They are activating adenylyl cyclase. If these hormones they come and bind here, this receptor will dissociate alpha from beta and gamma. This alpha and GTP will activate adenylyl cyclase. So let us see what happens if adenylyl cyclase is activated. If adenylyl cyclase is activated, it converts ATP into cyclic AMP. Adenylyl cyclase converts ATP into cyclic AMP. Same thing, the second messengers, atrial natriuretic factor and nitric oxide, they will activate GMP, or they will form GMP by activating guanylyl cyclase. Guanylyl cyclase. So it will convert GTP into cyclic GMP. It will convert GTP into cyclic GMP. So this cyclic AMP and cyclic GMP, what they do is they convert inactive protein kinase A into active protein kinase A. Protein kinase A or pKa. pKa inactive to pKa active. This active pKa, what it will do is it will convert a protein into its phosphoprotein. Okay, this phosphoprotein will bring about an action. For example, let us take glycogen phosphorylase. Okay, glycogen phosphorylase example. Glycogen phosphorylase. So whenever there is decreased blood glucose, which hormone is secreted? Glucagon is secreted from the pancreas. What glucagon will do? It will activate the adenylyl cyclase, which will convert ATP to cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP will convert protein kinase A into active protein kinase A, which will convert glycogen phosphorylase into glycogen phosphorylase, which is phosphorylated. This phosphorylated glycogen phosphorylase will convert glycogen into glucose by glycogenolysis. Okay, so glucagon, how is it affecting adenylyl cyclase, which will convert ATP to cyclic AMP? This cyclic AMP will convert protein kinase A, which is inactive, to active protein kinase A. This active protein kinase A will convert the glycogen phosphorylated into its phosphorylated form, which is the active form. This active phosphorylated form will cause catalysis of glycogen into glucose. Okay, so this is how it is happening. Now, this mechanism can also be inhibited by two things. First is the phosphoprotein can be converted back to its protein by removing the phosphate group by the enzyme phosphatase. So phosphatase is an enzyme which can block the action of adenylyl cyclase. The other is conversion of this cyclic AMP into AMP. Conversion of cyclic AMP into AMP by phosphodiesterase. So two inhibitors. What are they? One is phosphatases. Second is phosphodiesterase. So what happens is whenever there is stimulus and there is this action happening, immediately when the stimulus is removed, the action is blocked by presence of phosphodiesterase and phosphatase. These are always present inside the medium. So once you remove the stimulus, what happens once the blood glucose level, once the glucagon is not there, immediately phosphodiesterase will come and it will convert the cyclic AMP to AMP, and immediately phosphoprotein is converted back to protein. Suppose I block this phosphodiesterase enzyme. Suppose I block this phosphatase enzyme. What will happen to the levels of cyclic AMP? Even after the stimulus is removed, the levels will increase. So the action will be prolonged. So we can use phosphodiesterase inhibitors like sildenafil citrate and caffeine. It has xanthines, methyl xanthines. Both are inhibitors of phosphodiesterase. So we can use this to prolongate their action. Which you can use sildenafil citrate is generally used in impotence. Why? Because it will increase the action of nitric oxide by inhibiting the The third type of second messenger system that we need to know is hormones which are acting through calcium and phosphatidylinositols, or both of them, because both are interconnected. Now, what is the principal role of calcium? Calcium, as we know, it is required for your muscle contractions. It is required for your nerve impulse. Then it is required for your blood clotting. It is required for activation of enzymes. Many enzymes are calcium dependent. Then it maintains your membrane potential. All these things. All right. So where let's look at the distribution of these hormones. Like we have done previously, we'll just look into the distribution. Okay. So here we have our hypothalamus and your anterior pituitary and your posterior pituitary. Then we have your gut here. Let's say this is the duodenum, the gut. Then we have your adrenal glands, right? Have your adrenal glands. Anything else will come in. All right. So gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, thyrotropic releasing hormone. All these are coming from, sorry, gonadotropin releasing hormone, thyrotropin releasing hormone coming from hypothalamus. Then you have your oxytocin and your vasopressin, ADH, and your oxytocin coming from posterior pituitary. You can see here that okay. Next is acetylcholine. Acetylcholine comes from nerve endings, because this is your cell, and from the nerve endings we get the acetylcholine, ACH, acetylcholine. Then you have angiotensin. Angiotensin 2 is from lungs, wherein angiotensin 1 is converted to angiotensin 2 with the help of ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme inside the lungs. Next, cholecystokinin and gastrin. These are coming from gastrin and cholecystokinin, which is also called as pancreas. I mean, it is coming from the GIT. Next, platelet derived growth factor is coming from platelets. And substance P is a neurotransmitter. Again, substance P is also coming from nerve endings. Substance P is coming from nerve endings. So the second messenger system utilizing calcium and phosphorus mostly from posterior pituitary, hypothalamus like GnRH, your gut hormones like gastrin, cholecystokinin, and from your nerve endings like ACH and substance P. These are the ones which utilize calcium and phosphatidylinositols, or both of them. Now let us look at the mechanism proper, how it is happening. I'll first draw a cell. Right, so this is the cell, and this is the endoplasmic reticulum, and let's say this is the mitochondria. So mitochondria. All right. So the extracellular concentration is approximately like 5 millimoles per liter extracellular, and intracellular concentration is like 0.3 to 0.10, 0.10. Okay, 0.10 to 0.30 millimoles. There is huge difference between the extracellular concentration and the intracellular concentration. Intracellular concentration, it is very low. This low intracellular concentration is required for the cell, because if the calcium concentration increases, it will be toxic. So how is this cell maintaining this low intracellular concentration? It is by three mechanisms. First is the sodium calcium exchanger. Sodium calcium exchanger. Okay, it throws out calcium in replacement for sodium calcium exchanger. Then we have another one which throws out calcium and takes in H plus or proton, that is here calcium proton ATPase. Calcium proton ATPase. And whatever calcium is there inside the cell, it is sent inside the endoplasmic reticulum as well as inside the mitochondria by calcium ATPases. So three mechanisms: 1, 2, 3. All right. So first is sodium calcium exchanger, which is putting calcium out; calcium proton ATPase, which is taking calcium out; and calcium ATPases, which put intracellular calcium inside the cell organelles. Now the challenge is you need to bring calcium inside for a variety of functions, for a variety of actions, for a variety of activation of proteins. All right. Now how that is happening? Again, this was putting calcium out. Now let us see how calcium can be put inside. How calcium can be put in calcium inside. So again, there are three mechanisms by which calcium can be put inside. One is the G protein coupled receptor. Okay, so there is a GPCR or G protein coupled receptor. When hormone comes and binds to it, this G protein coupled receptor itself acts as a calcium channel. So when this comes and binds, what happens is calcium will come inside the cell. How? The hormone comes and binds with the G protein coupled receptor. This receptor changes its conformation, becomes a channel, and throws the calcium inside. Second mechanism is wherein the membrane gets this hormone. It comes and binds to the G protein coupled receptor, another GPCR, G protein coupled receptor. This will cause membrane depolarization. Once membrane gets depolarized, voltage gated calcium channels open. These are voltage gated calcium channels. So once they open, what happens? The calcium will rush inside the cell. Third mechanism is by phosphatidyl inositol breakage. Breaking the phosphatidyl inositol. Now we have seen that the G protein coupled receptor, it is bound with alpha, beta and gamma. This is our G protein coupled receptor. So once the hormone comes and binds to this, this alpha GTP will activate an effector. The effector here is phospholipase. And the alpha is alpha Q. alpha Q. So this alpha Q GTP, it will activate phospholipase C. This activated phospholipase C, it will convert phospholipase C, it will convert phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 bisphosphate into inositol triphosphate and 1,2-diacyl glycerol. 1,2-diacyl glycerol. So phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 bisphosphate converts it into inositol 3-phosphate and diacetyl glycerol. So this phospholipase now, what it has done is it has converted phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 bisphosphate into inositol 3-phosphate plus diacetyl glycerol. Inositol 3-phosphate plus diacetyl glycerol. This inositol 3-phosphate, it will act on the endoplasmic reticulum or the mitochondria to release calcium out. Who is doing that? Inositol 3-phosphate. Whereas diacetyl glycerol will cause the calcium channels to open. Diacetyl glycerols will cause the calcium channels, not this one. Diacetyl glycerol will cause the calcium channels to open. Alright, so 3 mechanisms to keep calcium out and 3 mechanisms to keep calcium in. What is the mechanism to keep calcium out? Sodium calcium exchanger, calcium proton adipase, and calcium adipases, which are converting intracellular into intraorganelle calcium. Now 3 mechanisms by which calcium can be put in. One is the GPCR itself acts as a calcium channel. Hormone comes and binds to it and calcium gets inside, or it changes the membrane potential, which opens the voltage gated calcium channel and calcium comes in, or it converts or it activates the effector phospholipase C, which will convert phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 biphosphate into inositol triphosphate and diacetyl glycerol. IP3 will cause intraorganelle calcium to come outside into the cytoplasm, whereas diacetyl glycerol will open the calcium channels. Now the ultimate result is a lot of calcium has come inside. When a lot of calcium has come inside, there is a protein inside the cell. This protein is having very structurally similar to your troponin C. This is called as calmodulin. So the calcium, it is trivalent, and all the calcium, 4 calcium molecules will bind to this calcium calmodulin to form the calcium calmodulin complex. Okay, it forms the calcium calmodulin complex. This will act like your cyclic AMP, which will convert proteins to their phosphoproteins. Calcium calmodulin complex. Especially enzymes like, for example, calcium dependent protein kinase, calcium magnesium ATPase, calcium phospholipid protein kinase. All these are phosphorylated by this calcium calmodulin complex, and when there is phosphorylation, then there is enzyme action. Okay. So 3 mechanisms and calcium calmodulin complex. Also, diacetyl glycerol activates protein kinase C, which also causes conversion of protein to phosphoprotein. Okay, so this was the third mechanism of action utilizing calcium and phosphatidyl inositol. So the last part of the session, that is second messengers using a kinase or a phosphatase cascade. Four important things you have to know. Four important hormones: insulin, then your prolactin, erythropoietin, and your growth hormone. Of this, your erythropoietin, growth hormone, and prolactin, they use the JAK-STAT pathway. Whereas insulin like growth factors, other growth factors like epidermal growth factor, nerve growth factor, platelet derived growth factor, all kinds of growth factors along with insulin, they use the tyrosine kinase pathway. Tyrosine kinase pathway. What is the difference between these two, JAK-STAT pathway and tyrosine kinase pathway? It's very simple. Because this is the cell membrane and this is the receptor. This is the receptor, and to this receptor, suppose insulin is coming and binding to this. What happens is this receptor, this insulin receptor itself has a tyrosine kinase activity. So when an insulin will come and bind to it, what will happen is this receptor will get phosphorylated. And it will activate other second messengers like your IRS, PI3 kinase and all that. We'll see in a while. So what has happened here is the receptor itself is a tyrosine kinase which will autophosphorylate itself when insulin comes and binds. Now the other kind of receptor wherein there is a receptor and your erythropoietin has come and bound to it. This receptor doesn't have a tyrosine kinase activity, but it depends on kinases which have tyrosine kinase activity, like your Janus kinase or JAK proteins, Janus kinase proteins. So when an EPO will come and bind to its receptor, the receptor won't get phosphorylated. It will react with Janus kinase. This Janus kinase will get phosphorylated. Okay, so that is the difference between a JAK-STAT pathway and tyrosine kinase pathway. All right, so these hormones, they act through these two pathways, JAK-STAT pathway and tyrosine kinase pathway. These are the ones for JAK-STAT: erythropoietin, your prolactin, and your growth hormone. All right, now let us look at how insulin is acting. Insulin, when it binds with its homotetrameric or heterotetrameric receptor, what happens is it has a phosphorylation. It undergoes autophosphorylation because it has tyrosine kinase activity. So this tyrosine here, this tyrosine gets phosphorylated, this tyrosine gets phosphorylated. So the insulin molecule is getting phosphorylated. Once it gets phosphorylated, it reacts with insulin receptor substrates. It is of 4 types, 1 to 4. So anyone it will react. And when it reacts with this insulin receptor substrate, the insulin receptor substrate will get phosphorylated on the tyrosine kinase receptor. So what is happening? First receptor is getting phosphorylated, then IRS is getting phosphorylated. Once IRS gets phosphorylated, it can undergo 3 pathways. First is the activation of PI3 kinase. This activation of PI3 kinase will activate PDK1. This will activate PKB or AKT, SGK, APK kinase or P70S6K. This P70S6K can also be stimulated by the mTOR pathway. Now, this activation of by PI3 kinase, PDK1, activation of PKB, PKC and 70SCK, they bring about various activities like translocation of proteins, enzyme activities, gene transcription, and the molecular targets for that will be like protein translocation, like the glucose transporter. Once insulin has comes inside, what it does is it brings the GLUT4 transporter to the surface. GLUT4 transporter will take in glucose, correct or not? Like that. So glucose transporter, insulin transporter, IGF-2 receptor, all their protein translocations within the cell can occur. What enzyme activities are influenced by insulin? Of course, the protein phosphatases. phosphodiesterases, and other enzymes. Gene transcription for hexokinase 2, glucokinase, glucagon, and phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase, all these enzymes, their gene transcription can undergo because of this molecule. Now there is one other pathway, or the GRB2M pathway, which mainly activates the MAP kinase. This MAP kinase is required for DNA synthesis and your gene transcription and induction. All right. So basically what you need to remember in this is, here the insulin receptor is getting auto phosphorylated on its tyrosine residues. Rest all, any tyrosine residue, whether it be your tyrosine kinase, whether it be your JAK kinase. JAK kinase will finally again, it will activate the same PI3 kinase and PDKase same. All right. Now coming to JAK-STAT pathway. This is your JAK-STAT pathway. Your growth hormone, erythropoietin, they act through that. So what happens is, the JAK-STAT pathway, the Janus kinases are attached to the receptor. Once the ligand comes and binds to the receptor, what happens is, this receptor undergoes a modification and phosphorylates and reacts with the Janus kinase. This Janus kinases, they undergo phosphorylation on their tyrosine residues. This activation or phosphorylation of Janus kinase will further phosphorylate the receptor molecules. It will phosphorylate the receptor molecules. So once this phosphorylation, see, receptor itself is not getting phosphorylated because of the ligand. It is getting phosphorylated because the Janus kinase has been phosphorylated, which in turn phosphorylates the receptor molecules. Now once this phosphorylation occurs, then STAT molecule, that is signal transducer and activator of transcription, that is your STAT. Okay, this gets attached to the phosphorylated receptor. Once it gets attached to the phosphorylated receptor, it undergoes phosphorylation. So first the Janus kinase is phosphorylated, which phosphorylates the receptor. This receptor phosphorylates the STAT. This activated or phosphorylated STAT will go to the DNA, and inside the DNA, what it will do is, it will bind with the hormone response element, like your interferon response element. Okay, JAK-STAT pathway. One other important substrate that utilizes this is cytokines. So cytokines, what they do is, they activate this JAK-STAT pathway, which causes binding of STAT to interferon response element. We know that a response element is the one which is on the DNA, like your hormone response elements. So this STAT will come and bind to the STAT, which is phosphorylated. It comes and binds to the interferon response element. This will produce an mRNA. This mRNA comes out on the ribosome. It produces a protein. This protein is the interferon. So interferons are produced like this. Your erythropoietin will act like this. Your growth hormone will act like this. What it is doing is activating the receptor, which binds with Janus kinase, which gets phosphorylated, which phosphorylates the receptor. This again will cause phosphorylation of STAT. STAT will go into the nucleus and it will bind to the response element and it will produce interferons. One other pathway is, instead of STAT, it can also react with proteins which are having the SH2 domain. Then it will activate your GRB2, your phospholipase, your PI3 kinase, like in our insulin. Okay, this PI3 kinase, GRB2, same pathway is again activated by JAK-STAT also, by JAK also. All right. Now the final one you need to remember is NFKB activators. Nuclear factor kappa beta. Nuclear factor kappa beta, also called as your NFKB. This, when it attaches to the DNA, it produces an mRNA. This mRNA will produce a protein, and this protein will decrease, this protein will decrease the inflammation. this protein will decrease the inflammation. Okay, so NFKB is a protein. It is made up of two parts, that is your P50 and your P65. Okay, it has two domains, P50 and P65, the P50 and P65. What it does, it goes and binds to the DNA. When free, it goes and binds to the DNA, which produces an RNA by transcription, which produces a protein by translation, and this will decrease the inflammation. Now, this NFKB is not always active. It is present in the inactive form because a protein called as IKB, it will always be attached to this P50 and P65, and it will not let it go and do its action. Like this P50, P65, when it is free, it goes and it binds with the co-activators, and on the target gene it causes transcription. This transcription will produce mRNA, and this mRNA will produce a protein. All right. Now, this IKB can be destroyed by an complex called as IKK complex, which is having three subunits, that is alpha, beta, and gamma. Okay, it is having three types of subunits, alpha, beta, and gamma. These IKK complexes are activated by pro-inflammatory cytokines, bacteria and viruses, reactive oxygen species, and mitogens. All right. So, when these cytokines, viruses, and reactive oxygen species or mitogens, what they do, they come and activate the IKK complex. This IKK complex will cause phosphorylation of IKB. So, IKB gets phosphorylated. Once IKB gets phosphorylated, it will activate the proteasome ubiquitin pathway and it will get destroyed. So IKB gets destroyed after IKK phosphorylation. So what is the effect? P50 and P65 are open. This P50 and P65, they will modulate the co-activators, which will cause P50 and P65 to cause RNA polymerase to recruit, and transcription mRNA produces protein, and this produces inflammation, or proteins which cause inflammation. So this is increased inflammation. That's what I said. Okay, so it causes increased inflammation. That is NFKB, its role and how it gets activated by breakdown of this IKB. Now there are molecules like your glucocorticoids. We use glucocorticoids in treatment to decrease inflammation, whether it be your gout or your any other infection or inflammation which you want to reduce. We use glucocorticoids. What these glucocorticoids do is they have different kinds of action. First is they increase the IKB protein. So a lot of response is required to increase the inflammation. So what happens is this glucocorticoids, they will increase the IKB expression of IKB protein expression. Second thing is it will go and bind with the P65. Your glucocorticoid will go and bind with the P65 and it will inactivate it. It will go and bind with the P65 and it will inactivate it. Okay, so what happens in both these things? One is more IKB is there, so it is not free. Second is P65 gets inactivated, so this action doesn't occur. All right, so that is the action of your glucocorticoids or your NFK beta pathway. So to summarize again, the fourth type is kinase or phosphatase cascade. Erythropoietin, growth hormone, prolactin, insulin, and various growth hormones, growth factors take this pathway. There are two types: tyrosine kinase, JAK-STAT tyrosine kinase, wherein the receptor itself can phosphorylate, whereas in JAK pathway the receptor modulates with JAK to phosphorylate JAK. So insulin and your cytokines, erythropoietin, use various types of reactions or various types of this mechanism to do their action. Okay, thank you.